So, if you thought that this is going to be my next podcast place recording, then you're wrong. But um, yes, this is actually my new podcast place. Niklas Persson, a former, obviously, jet pilot in the Swedish Air Force and now entrepreneur. And we are meeting in Zurich in the home of Kennedy, previous F10, where we actually met 2.5 years ago for the first time. So this is going to be a super interesting discussion about the mental side of flying a jet, how we actually came even about it, flying a jet, and then what is important, what's driving him to become an entrepreneur. So let's dive into this podcast together. So the start of the podcast is always a little bit difficult because it feels a little bit artificial to say, "Oh, welcome to the pod" every time. It's a little bit surreal, but it's super cool that we actually meet here in Zurich. We are here at the Kennedy co-working space, which is pretty cool. That we can actually have our chat. And for all the listeners, if they are listeners, they should be aware that Niklas is actually my boss, so I can't be too critical about it, asking too much challenging questions. No. Joke aside, Niklas, welcome to the pod.
Thank you.
Super cool that you're here. We had now some couple of days already here in Switzerland working together, organizing an event and everything. So how has your trip been so far?
It's been great. Super busy, as always, when I come to Switzerland and then Zurich. We try to fit in as many meetings and things as we can possibly do, and this is not a exception from that, this trip. So a 6 o'clock start, 6:10 red eye from Stockholm on Wednesday, a 4 o'clock rise and shine. And then we were pretty much scheduled until this afternoon when I'm traveling back.
But you're used to getting up early.
Yes.
Aren't you?
Yeah.
The military training.
Sure.
Behind it.
Sure.
So before we actually going to start, Niklas is basically a serial entrepreneur. It's your third company right now, right?
Sort of. Yeah.
Sort of. And you had both as well, big corporate experience as well. So you have a plethora of experience. And before that, you even have been a jet pilot.
That's right.
So maybe we start with that. How did you actually even get into that specific? I mean, jet pilot is quite a unique job.
Yeah, probably. Well, not everyone get that chance to run jet fighters on a daily basis. So I was privileged to get that possibility, which is a lot about luck, of course. Because there are so many things you just need to have sort of in your body and mind that you don't know of, wouldn't use, and if it's right, it's right, and it works. If it's not, then it doesn't happen. So I obviously watched the Top Gun movie 1987, as many others did, and I thought, I just need to try this. But again, that was a long shot because I had other plans, obviously going to school and find myself an education and a job, something exciting, hopefully. Then, but then I got I got accepted. I did obviously file an application and did all the tests and finally got into the training school.
And I mean, for me, it actually, I mean, from just kind of what you said, so this is mental, is that I need to try this out. I think actually, and that is a repeating thing throughout your career, as I understood it. So, and I mean, you didn't doubt yourself, you didn't have any kind of, or was it just for you, it's, failure was not, for you didn't care that much about it, or is it just like, let's have a go? I don't know unless I tested it.
Indeed. I mean, you have nothing to lose.
No.
Try and see if it works. And I didn't think so much about it. Obviously, a little bit of a dream. I mean, it's a fantastic environment to work in. To sit on your own on 80,000 horsepower and ride that bird. It's fantastic. But also that becomes a everyday thing. To be honest, I did it for 11 years, and then I just thought I had to do something else because I was being curious. So you want to try new things.
Yes. And but I mean, in terms of now in that phase during the training, there's a lot of mental things. I mean, mental testing and exercises and what I mean, we don't have to go into the detail of all the different trainings what you did and had to do. Survival. We talked a little bit about that in earlier meetings when we chatted about that over a glass of wine with survival trainings and diving and all these kind of things. But what was for you kind of what had the most impact also in the rest of your life now that you actually took with you?
Yeah, a few things. I think most of all to see that everything is possible. To build confidence with individuals and teams. When you do that well, you can achieve so much. I think the training, the jet flight training was a great example of how you could actually produce such a steep learning curve if you do it right with individuals, which they did really well and still do really well in, I guess, air forces around the world, but certainly the Swedish Air Force. I mean, I started the training school in September. By late October, we started to fly the jet trainer. By February, 4 months later, I flew it on my own. I started and landed the aircraft. It's a jet aircraft. A couple of months later, you fly formation in 2-ship formation, and then it's just you start to train. Obviously, fighting at some point and maneuver and fire guns and missiles and what have you in a very short time frame. And to accomplish that, you just need to produce an environment that gives space for people to grow and grow fast. So it's about building confidence and allowing mistakes to happen to a certain point. Yes. Beyond that point, you die if you fly an airplane. But and that experience is something that I brought with me in business. Because that works really well. It works well with teams. It works well in business. To have that sort of, I think they call it growth mindset nowadays.
Okay. There's always a name. Yeah. But was there dedicated kind of trainings as well in that kind of like mental training, visualization, stuff like that?
Absolutely.
Are you still using that?
Not so much anymore, to be honest.
Okay.
But I've done that a lot. I think I probably do it unconsciously, and I think you do it as well. You go through something that you're about to set out to do. If it's a presentation in front of a large audience, if it's a sales pitch, if it's you see before you a successful scenario over and over again, and that was something we did a lot. I mean, learning to fly, you see what's going to happen in the aircraft, and then you anticipate things that's going to happen, and then you obviously try to also think about places where you have the unknowns coming in and be prepared for that. So preparation is important. I think we said the other day that plans are nothing, planning is everything. And that is about to be prepared, to have things a little bit thought about before, certain scenarios, and then when it happens, you just reset and you're prepared, and you go into a mindset, a mental state where you're just ready for whatever comes. And that could be on a stage, it could be in a pitch, in a negotiation, it can be in a group of people where you really don't know sort of what's going to happen. And I think preparation and that mental preparation means a lot. So yes, I do that, but not as disciplined and organized as you do it when you're a student or you're in learning. I guess.
I need to ask this. Did you had any actually active, I mean, real active interactions with a Russian airplane, for example? I mean, did you? So I mean, obviously you have the training, and then you're kind of set and done, and then you have active duty,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And were you in missions and stuff like that?
Sure. I mean, that's to patrol the borders. The Baltic Sea is a very interesting place. I think more now than almost ever before. Certainly during the Cold War. In the 90s, it was a bit, I think, more calm and slower. And that was when I was active.
Okay.
But we still patrol the borders. We had a very good understanding of the ships, coming out from Petersburg and out to do their testing, and that's where we were to check them out and see what they had and take the photos and stuff like that. But
you never had to shoot down anything?
No. So just patrolling, identify aircraft, coming close to the borders. Obviously, battleships or military vessels on the surface was something we worked a lot with for what do you say, underrättelse, intelligence, photos, intelligence.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, working in the military, particularly if you're in the Navy or in the Air Force, there's always an element of real sort of service.
But no kind of dangerous interaction where you were close to?
Not close to an enemy in that sense.
No, okay. Were you a little bit disappointed or not? I mean, now kind of talking about Top Gun and these amazing scenes and stuff like that.
No, I did. I mean, training, air combat is you train very close to reality. I mean, you're in. there are very small margins in that maneuvering, sort of those maneuvering situations, and so it's quite similar. But the real thing is the real thing, and I've never been into any real combat or been shot at or shooting at someone, and I'm probably very happy I didn't have that experience.
So. Yeah, you should be. Yeah, probably. But then you got bored of it. What was the reason?
Bored. I've this was in a period where it wasn't as urgent or as well. There was a sense in at least in this country and in this region that I'm talking Sweden now, that there's never going to be any more wars anywhere. So they were pretty much closing down regiment by regiment, wing by wing, or squadron by squadron, and doing that I did for 11 years. You start to think, well, maybe I can do something else. And at some point, you also, in that career, you need to look at a staff career. So you start to work a little bit behind a table. And then you're suddenly in a large corporate organization, like any other large corporate organization, very political. And not so exciting,
No.
When you have that learning curve on a squadron, which is like a family, and you do everything together, and you go through very difficult times sometimes, and then you achieve and experience a lot. That's a very dynamic environment. But when you don't have that anymore, then it's not as exciting. And then I started to look for other opportunities.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And there was actually, so for the listeners, Niklas is coming from basically a small town, right, in the south of Sweden.
That's true. Yeah.
Aarhus.
Yeah, Aarhus is my hometown is even smaller. Or it's a village just between Kristianstad and Aarhus. So yeah, very small.
So and the initiation, basically, as I understood, as you explained me, or kind of told me the story once, that there were some friends from that area that said we should do something. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
So I mean, the main plan for me was to go to university and study, and obviously all my friends did, and I went to the training school, and then they came out and they started their businesses and their careers, and we had a lot of contact all the time.
Mm.
I've been blessed with having many good friends from very young years. So out of my 10 closest friends, there's still a majority from when I was 5 or 6 or 13 or 16. So a few of them, I mean, there's constant talking. We should do this, we should do that. And at some point where I started to look around, they obviously said, well, Niklas, you should come and work with us. And I did. Yeah.
And what did they start, or what did you guys start?
So a couple of them were at the time, they had started out their careers in the capital markets. One of my then future, let's say, co-founders of the companies we founded, he was in trading, so he was a trader on Wall Street. Another one worked with technology for that kind of companies. So they obviously, they come together, start to work for actually a Swedish company, but that was acquired by Sangard, a large US firm, and Front Capital Systems, and they started a subsidiary of that company, and then they invited me to come and work for them. So I did, and just a couple of years later, we took off from that organization and started our own company. We were 3, and then we got a couple of co-founders added to that small team, and this was in a time where financial engineering was extremely expensive in the new millennium, where the .com sort of tilted, but IT technology around trading was just taking off on the back of the deregulations in financial markets. It was just crazy. So I wouldn't say it was easy, but it was a tremendous growth category we started to work in, and obviously saw the opportunities and went for them.
The interesting thing, it strikes me a little bit that you're kind of hopping or kind of moved into a different squadron, right? Into a different kind of team of people, where there was a lot of trust and a lot of understanding, and obviously also a super kind of open mindset, right? We can do, which is quite astonishing. Just kind of realizing the fact that there was, that they're all coming from the same little village. How many citizens does Aarhus have?
So we're now talking about Awesome, which is probably a few hundred. So no, a very similar background, the 3 of us, and also the other guys I'm still very much in contact with. Very simple, a small town, no fancy,
No.
Grow up under very, I would say, good circumstances with families and friends, and small city.
But it's the mindset is that is kind of what astonished me the most. This kind of like, and that you actually found early on this kind of group of people, right? It's not always the same combination, right? It's always a little bit kind of shifting. But for me, that I'm from Frauenfeld, which is a little bit bigger. We have, it's 30,000 citizens, and at that time, or it's probably also with Switzerland, there was not such a mindset at all. So the kind of the aspiration was to work for a bank, for example, or then, and my time was consultancy, right? That was kind of the high achievement. Doing something on your own was not on the agenda at all. And I've interviewed in my last spot Rafael Toblo, who is a young entrepreneur. And even he, I don't exactly, I think he started his educational platform 3, 4, 5 years ago. And even he hadn't actually the framework, the surroundings of positive or like-minded mindsets. So that he even started a known entrepreneurs club in order to kind of collect those mindsets. So that's the reason why it's quite unique for me. But that you actually have that head, and obviously one part is coming from the family and the way you grow up and everything. Then some parts, obviously, this kind of self-confidence, I assume, has also come from your military training.
So this is a little bit more kind of like, okay, I can actually fly a fighter jet, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Have you ever reflected on that? I mean,
yeah. Yes, I have. I mean, it's been again something that I've noticed. Sort of what are the the things to look for when you hire people, when you build teams. You've seen what's been successful before, and then you try to find a little bit the same patterns. Not and still to try to build diverse teams, because you don't want to have teams where everyone looks the same, right?
No.
You need to have the dynamics to strike that balance between common mindsets, but still different ideas, and to be able to have conflicts and learn from them, etc. But I think to your point, clusters, role models are super important, and when you get small clusters of, let's say, if you call it growth mindset, and people are successful, then people inspire each other.
Yes.
So if he can do it, I can do it. If she can do it, I should be able to. If I can run a jet airplane, I should be able to solve that situation, because it shouldn't be too complicated. So and I think that's something that generates more, and let's say when people look at each other and people are successful, then you help each other, and that was certainly a case with the people I knew from my childhood. The friends I still have, they've been successful in many different ways, but I think we all helped each other, inspired each other, and we still do.
Yeah,
very much.
Yeah, that's what I think is quite astonishing, right? That this is actually happening, and I think it's quite inspirational as well from Switzerland. I don't think that we had that previously. I think it's getting there now. But then, okay, so now you had this new company. There was but then you actually sold it again, right?
Yes.
And then you went corporate.
Indeed, yeah. That sort of came with the territory. If you sell something to a large corporate, they expect you to deliver. So bringing this organization we had of 55 folks into a large that had become a quite U.S., let's say, well, typical American company with hierarchies and the politics, and well, obviously assuming responsibility in that setting, and try to do something which was difficult, but also for me a great learning experience to see how to get things done in a larger way. I like to think as of the military as a large corporate organization. There are many elements that are the same with the politics and things like that can be potentially difficult to work with. Same thing here, but I mean, I learned at that point we acquired one of the competitors, a French company, and I had a privilege to work with the merger of that organization. So I had to learn new business segments and new, if not technologies, but certainly products, and obviously new colleagues, French culture. That was a global firm, so it's a super exciting environment to work in. So I did it for 6 years. So.
Did you have a kind of a squadron-like connection in there as well? Probably.
What do you mean?
It's an inner circle within the organization. Kind of you're a tag team, right?
Always.
Always.
Yeah. That's been. I mean, you try to identify people you can work with, and then you set out a strategy. Even if you have a small team in a big organization, you just need to know where you're going. So I try to shape strategies with the teams I work with. So how do we survive in this large organization? How do we get successful in the market? And so you have those dimensions. If you work in large corporates, it's about dealing with the real problems with the market and customers and whatever you need to achieve. But you also need to maneuver the politics in a large organization, which is in itself a challenge and an art.
Yes, I agree. And but you didn't stay. I mean, it's
I stayed for 6 years.
For 6 years, but then you kind of you had your learning curve, and then you said, okay.
Yeah, I
So
stayed because there were new challenges
Exactly.
coming along, and one of them was the merger with GL Trade at the time. That happened sort of 2-3 years. If it wasn't for that opportunity to work with one of the Swiss, I think profiles here, Jörg Hunziger, he was the sponsor buying my company, and then he was part of acquiring GL Trade and led that new organization, and he appointed me to be one of his sort of helpers in his team to achieve the merger on a, let's say, global scale, more focus on Europe, Middle East, and Africa, but still. And if it hadn't been for that opportunity, then I would have left probably 2-3 years into that, when we had delivered what we promised to the buyer. But looking back, it's a lot for me. 3-year terms. You get into something that takes 1 year to learn, 2 years to sort of the second year you get active and you start to deliver. Third year you start to get bored and look for the next opportunity, and then so it's actually, even in the military, you move from different squadrons, you move to a different in that career, you learn new systems, etc. So as long as there is a 2-3 year term and there is something new popping up, then it works well for me.
I have actually the same. I think might even have a little less patience, to be honest. But it's. I mean, for me, it's. So the corporate part. I mean, that's for me is the most challenging part, because it somehow kind of fucks up my head a little bit, because I don't like politics. I don't. I mean, for me, it's kind of like, okay, we have to define a mission and vision, and then strategy, and then let's go. And this inner company fights who has more right or wrong or whatever is really kind of, that's so much waste of energy, and it actually drains me a lot.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of negative connotation to politics, but the company, internal, call it policy, politics is the right word. However, it needs to be there. It's a large organization. It needs to work, and that's part of the corporate life. So you need to embrace that if you stay and work with it. And I think I did. I or at least tried to. But clearly it slows people down. I mean, that's why large corporates, they at some point starts to deliver less growth, and they become subject to they get punished by competition and by the market, because it gets slower and slower. So that's really a challenge for large companies, a well-known challenge.
Yeah, exactly. But I think it's more for me. It's the interesting thing is also the how, and that's there are people who really love that kind of challenge within a corporate. They're really kind of, and I admire that they really kind of blossom. I mean, they're really kind of, that's their element. But for me, I really kind of, it burns me out. Basically, it's kind of like if I can't actually move forward, then it's just kind of like I'm exploding, literally speaking. But so after these 6 years, then you said, okay, that's enough. And then what happened?
Then I resigned. I started to. I gave myself some free time, because it had been a very let's say a long period of hard work. Co-founding the business and then growing that through the financial crisis, which was a bit of a trauma, of course, for any entrepreneur in the financial industry at the time. And we managed to survive that and come out on the other side with continued sort of growth, and after that we're able to sell the company. But then from one day to another, you sell the company, and then you walk into the next to the new office, and you're supposed to deliver. And so there were no stop or time to breathe in that period. So after those 6 years, I thought I deserved some time to rest. So I took a few months. I did just a little bit of work, advisory here, advisory there, and helped a few other entrepreneurs to start up and get their business going, but not very operational. But then obviously started to think about what is the next, because I immediately saw that I love to ski and I love to exercise and we play golf, but that's something you do on your leisure time. That was not a full-time activity for me. So started to think about something new, and then again got inspired by people around me, my former colleagues, Monica and Andres, an old friend, Daniel, who already were active then in the sustainability space. And that was a point where I guess also midlife, we had been in a sector that was indeed a very rewarding financial sector, but not always, indeed not very sustainable.
No.
And certainly not so much purpose driven. So to bring those, into the equation, those factors were very, I think, important for me and for us that started then Deedster. To add that dimension was important. And at some point, together with those former colleagues and with my old friend Daniel, we found something and we started to work with it.
And you told me once that the connection to Daniel was actually starting from your.
That's right.
From pilot or fighter pilot time, right?
That's true.
So his wife was a jet fighter.
Exactly. Right? His wife Anna, which is still a very close friend of mine, started out at jet training school on the same day. We were in the same class of 12. Started in September 1990. Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah. So we worked together in the first squadron, the strike fighter squadron, and then we went to different places. But then she met Daniel, and they got married. And then obviously Daniel became a good friend of mine as well.
So you got reunited basically with old friends, and Daniel and Monica was out of the company you have run before.
Anders and Monica,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that there you had your kind of tech team going on again.
Yeah.
But it's super interesting. I think it's that you have had that all the time as well. These connections, right? It's not natural. Not natural. That's the wrong expression. But it's not that for me. I mean, I don't know that many people who have the same people around them for such a long time. Especially not maybe privately, yes, but not on both sides, right?
No, but I think that people say when you start and build businesses and you with friends can be difficult, and you might lose the friendship. And I think that story, you've heard that many times, and you've seen many examples of that. I always thought of that as the pros really being, how do you say, it sort of supersedes the cons of it. To work with people you trust and you know well, that's a great advantage. I mean, when you go into it, you know strengths and weaknesses with people, and you can function as a team, and you like each other, which is really important. You share the victories and then the defeats. You win together, you lose together. That is such a strength. And then you just need to safeguard a little bit the fact that you meet each other every day, so the friendship will be different. So instead of doing things together and when you're in your free time and weekends or whatever, you do it at work time, and now we don't see each other much at all. And outside work. But that's fine. And then you just need to, I think, accept a little bit, you know each other's strengths and weaknesses, and to accept weaknesses and as a trade-off for the strengths is always important. Because
Yes.
there will be times when it doesn't work perfectly, and you just need to respect and deal with that, and it is what it is. But if you think about the pros, I think for me it's been, if not easy, but the right choice. But I appreciate that it's not maybe for everyone to start businesses with friends, because if you go from friendship into business, it's a difference. So business is business, and friendship is friendship.
I think it's probably most of the times it's about, it has probably also a lot to do with ego, and then financially, obviously, as well.
Yeah,
I think that's probably the two biggest kind of things in that. But what for me, working now, I'm part now of this new endeavor, right, Deedster.
Yeah.
And what strikes me the most, and we have been talking about this before, just yesterday and the day before, actually, as well, is kind of the way you have set the company and the kind of the structure and the discussions.
Yeah.
Are really different to what I have experienced, obviously, in the past. I have been working also in big companies and smaller companies, and the most successful companies I've actually worked were much more kind of like there was the CEO and the founder basically driving it with an iron fist almost, and say, okay, I know the way, I tell you where to go, and then let's go. And you are completely the opposite in my kind of perception, right here. It's kind of we have just now gone through the goal setting, and that's kind of an open arena, right? I'm struggling with that. But you, and I mean, maybe we should explain a little bit what is your thinking behind that?
Yeah. I think it's quite simple. If you have a brain big as a planet, and if you can think of all ideas, if you're a genius, then you might have the answer to anything, and you can tell everyone what to do, and you get successful. And I'm sure there are examples of that. But I'm not that smart. I don't have that kind of brain, so I need to find smart people, talented people, smarter than myself, and bring into my team. And when I do that, it doesn't make sense that I tell them what to do. I have an idea of where we're going. I have a vision that I thought about a lot. So I can explain that vision, and I hopefully can explain what was sort of, this is the playground where we're going to be active. We're building a platform. We're not designing something else, right? And we're in a certain market. But then what makes sense is to empower everyone to just bring out their best and expand their own minds and for the benefit of the company. As long as we have goals aligned and we share the same vision, it is about empowering teams and individuals as much as you possibly can, and delegate as much power and decision power. And that's really powerful. It has served us well. I mean, I've been in a hierarchical organization, and that can work as well, and you can have hybrids. Now we've taken it with Deedster, I think we've taken it one step further with the domains and the flat organization. It may seem slow at the beginning when you're in goal setting, in the goal setting phase. As you know, we work in sprints and business sprints. So the beginning of the sprint may slow you down a little bit because you try to involve people in that process. But once you have agreed on goals, objectives, then it's there are such great benefits.
No, but what I was when we were talking after the event, we were talking shortly about that as well. That you embrace different opinion and the conflict and the discussion coming out of that. But as long as you are treating yourself or kind of each other with respect and kind of you're not getting personal, then it's just kind of for the benefit of the company.
Yeah.
And that's quite special, I think. And it needs a lot, and that's coming back to your military training. Even I mean, that you actually have to have a lot of trust in the people that you have on your team, basically, right? And that you believe in them, kind of delivering their best in the overall purpose of the company.
Indeed, and I think that goes both ways. You trust in people; they trust in me or a company, and you trust in people until you don't trust them anymore. And when at that point, it's over. So then you depart. You're not half pregnant or something like that. It's absolute 100% trust that works. And again, I think that's super powerful. And if you have the trust, then you can take conflicts and you can have different opinions, and we can all be frustrated. But there is a there is a safety in we're frustrated. We can agree that we disagree, but at some point we just set out the direction, and once we're fine, or just at least moderately fine, then we execute, and. It's not rocket science, I think. But
but it's quite special. I mean, from what I have experienced, right, and I have seen a couple of companies who none of them were really kind of set up and structured like this at all.
And I think it's maybe not for everyone. I know one of the bigger, fast-growing companies in our sector in Stockholm. They ran into problems because they hired managers and middle managers from large financial institutions coming in with all the knowledge they needed for that company, but in a very different culture. So coming in as a middle manager or even a manager, and where you may be used to sort of rely on your old merits and what you've done in the past and your level in the organization, so fall back on that. And that's not the case in this kind of organization.
No,
you actually need to prove yourself over and over again. Because you get challenged by team members and the teams. So that can be a bit, if you're not used to that, particularly if you can sort of fall back on your title, your pay grade, whatever, then it can be quite difficult.
But it's I mean, the discussion, and that's kind of interesting, and I have had actually different kind of discussions on that with people here, especially also explaining that when we have these discussions now with you, Monica, and Anders, who are the co-founders as well, or Daniel, that there were actually no limits in terms of what can be brought to the table. And nothing was stupid or idiotic, or how can you even think about that? Just kind of, there was an open plane. We take it up, we look at it, give our open opinion, and then if we don't agree on things, then we just kind of put it aside and let's agree on the prioritization.
Yeah.
And that's a very collaborative way of actually doing it. Which again, I'm quite astonished with, because it's also not really Swiss, to be honest.
Maybe not.
No.
Maybe it will be sometime. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe it's exactly. But it's so when looking at this kind of story and how you developed your mindset and your curiosity has never really kind of changed, right? You have always.
No, the curiosity is a strong driver for myself, for sure. It itches when you see something that you want to understand and know more about, and particularly when you see opportunity, and I easily see opportunity, and maybe not always the threats and the problems so much. I think that's a quality and something that characterizes an entrepreneur, that you tend to see the opportunities over the hurdles, because there are thousands of reasons why you will fail as a startup, for instance.
Exactly.
So if you think about those, then you will not get anywhere.
No.
You look at the opportunities and you go for them, and then it's about picking the right opportunity, obviously. and you need to be a problem-solving organization. But problems, you will have problems for sure, no matter how you do it. So that's not, sort of not the problem. It's about finding the right opportunity and take that on.
In terms of, my first podcast recording was with Daniel, and we were talking about the fear of failure.
Yeah.
And I mean, listening to you now, you can actually hear and kind of, there is no fear of failure. It's just kind of about learning, right?
Yeah. Well, yes, it's not as simple as that. There is certainly fear of failure, because the longer you get, the more you have to lose. And we have an organization now of 17 folks, and I mean, we're still in an early stage company, right? So there's all the room still for failure. So of course there is fear. There has to be fear, but the fear can't be greater. The fear to lose can't be greater than the appetite to win. I think that balance is important. But I think we all have fears, right?
But it's
something to have.
Absolutely. But I think the interesting thing is that the talk I had with Daniel was specifically about that he kind of, what's the worst that can happen, right? He was so safe in where he was, and so I think he said he's not a doctor or a heart surgeon. So if if he makes mistakes, it does, nobody dies. So and the most important thing for him is more kind of like that. Okay, if something fails, then you start to improve. Obviously, the failure of the whole company is a different thing than on the way, kind of building and executing, right? So after solving some technical issues, it's Murphy's Law, right? Something always goes wrong. But we're back with the recording. So we talked about now what you actually learned the most, and out of that team building, and when you want to start something own, that you have to be actually open, and kind of diversity in the team, but then setting some limits. So if someone is starting a new company, what would be the advice you would give them, what they'll have to look out for now in founding partners or new employees? What should they be looking out for?
Yeah, I think to start with, to not be alone is a great thing. To be at least two. And I mean, the first company we started, we were three of us, which was, I think, very powerful. This time we were four starting. So to be able to share again wins and challenges, and to have fun on a daily basis together with someone else, that's really not sort of an advantage. As then building team, and the basic rule is to try to find the smart and talented people as you possibly can, and people that you can at some point hand over the company to, that will do it better than yourself. You need different capacities and capabilities, of course, and that's why, and that goes for, I mean, skills clearly and experience, but also to be diverse in terms of culture and background. I mean, even if you build a product or a service or a company that's going to service, if you provide a service to people that are diverse, then you should probably have a diverse team. I mean, if you're building a consumer product, but even if you don't do that, I think it's to have different influences and backgrounds and experience. That's super powerful. So that's a good idea. The other thing would be to look for advice, and I think one of the great advantages of the Stockholm, let's say, startup community, is that there are so many people who did this before. So you easily get guidance, and people are very generous in sharing and paying forward. I think that culture is perhaps the most powerful thing with Stockholm as a startup community, a tech community or startup community. That is sometimes underestimated. You need access to capital and sponsors, and that's good. But what's even better is to have people that knows things, that has been through, the challenges before, which will speed you up. You always need to find your own flavor and make your own decisions, for sure. But you can speed that up by having good people around you, advisors and helpers, and obviously staff, team.
Rafael Toglod, the young entrepreneur and multitasker, he has actually a dedicated coach. Do you have that as well? Is that something you would recommend?
I haven't had that much. I that's probably a good thing, and it's something that I many times thought I should have more than I had. And from time to time, I had, if not mentors, but I have people I go, ask questions. Especially when I was a bit sort of younger, less experienced. But I would certainly recommend that.
Okay.
Sometimes you have to pay for it. So
yes.
Can you spend that $1? That's probably good idea if you can allocate the funds.
Yes. And kind of, if there is now someone listening and has always had an idea, what would you be, how to find the courage? Because you have done that now several times. It's kind of like, let's try it out. Let's do it.
Yeah. No, it's one thing to talk about it and another thing to actually get going. So I guess to make sure you take steps. It may be small steps. You cannot build it all. You do all the things at the same time. But to get going and say, you set out a plan and you take those small steps and you get support and you put some incentives for yourself to get it done.
Find the right co-founders.
Yeah, that's a really good start. That's a really good start. And then set up some goals and make sure you reach them. Just like with anything else in life, it's about, okay, let's try to get to that point. That's not rocket science, but
no, but it's difficult. Not everybody can do it.
Yeah, you need to find it exciting, and if you don't, then maybe you should do something else. But go work in exciting is just got to be
exactly
one of the main drivers.
Yes, Niklas, it was a super pleasure to have you actually on the podcast. We're gonna have lots of discussions throughout the year. But thank you very much.
Thank you, Pascal. Always a pleasure.
Tack.
So I just finished editing the latest podcast with the chat pilot, Niklas Persson. And if you have listened through it, I think you kind of noticed that this was probably one of the more personal ones that I've created so far. I have known him for now 2.5 years, so almost 3 years, and we have been working quite closely together in the last couple of months. And so this was a slightly different kind of setup for me. Made me also a little bit nervous, to be honest, but I think it was because I have known him. It was actually, I was curious if I learned new things about him, and I actually did. I wasn't aware that he was so kind of that the role kind of the chat pilot and the education and the organizational part of that, with the squadron, that actually has influenced him quite a bit, and in the way he's acting and interacting now these days, and how is he building his teams, right? So that was super interesting, and I think he has actually replicated this squadron concept throughout his career, finding his kind of tech team to tackle whatever kind of challenges are ahead. So that was quite interesting, and I really liked the what followed with that thought. He kind of mentioned that this is a family. I'm not entirely into that. The company is your family, but I understand obviously because these co-founders now, for example, of Teachers, are friends or have been friends for a long time. So this is kind of a little bit slightly different angle to it. But in the end, it's a business, right? So, but what it actually created, this kind of thought
is a much more open and probably transparent and real kind of interaction, meaning that because they are so aware of the weaknesses and strengths, and you can actually communicate about that you get a much more honest and collaborative exchange, which I think is really valuable and fruitful. And you can actually see that this is creating much more kind of outside of the box thinking than probably in other companies, much more creativity, and allows also the people to grow, which is also one of the things that it's quite important to him. So I think that's super interesting, and the learning aspect for me has been now obviously since I started working for Dietster. And then the other thing is the fact that for him, despite being the CEO and co-founder, and also together with the other co-founders, they don't imply and impose the strategy and the targets and what has to be worked on. But it's actually even there, it's a collaborative concept, because he really kind of lives that the mindset that you hire people for their mind, for their knowledge, and you want to create a knowledge pool, and then out of that take out the best ideas and concepts and push that forward. Which he said that particularly that the collaborative and the kind of combined know-how is actually generating the best ideas. So that's also quite unique, at least in what I have seen and how I've seen other companies work. So that was quite exciting. The final and last question obviously remains. I'm not actually sure if I'm part of that squadron. I probably have to ask him over a glass of red wine, a good one, in the next couple of months. But that was it. My fourth podcast is finished, and if you have some suggestions, some ideas who to talk to, maybe it's even you, let me know, reach out, and let's get in touch. Bye.